everyone, my name is Jean Villedieu. I'm one of the co-founders of Linkurious, and I'm delighted to be here for visualizing Azure Cosmos DB with Linkurious Enterprise. Let's get started. Graphs are everywhere. For example, in financial services, lots of organizations are struggling to fight back against fraud. And in order to do that, they need to understand the connections across clients via things such as transactions. In intelligence, law enforcement agencies care about connections across people via phone numbers, for example, or transactions. Once again, it's all about a graph problem. In cybersecurity, it's very important to understand the connections between servers, routers, various endpoints to, for example, assess the context of a security breach. In data governance, there are also lots of graphs because you care about concepts, systems, servers, applications, and you want, for example, to understand how a certain report is tied to other reports, to understand the downstream impact of a change in a given report. In life sciences, you also have a lot of graph data. For example, if you look at proteins, you're going to find that they are interacting with each other. And this can be important to understand if you want to repurpose some drugs. And then supply chain is in itself a graph, and it's important to think of it as a graph to optimize routes among other problems. So when you look at it, we are surrounded by graph data. And that's why at Linkurious, we have created Linkurious Enterprise. Linkurious Enterprise is a web application that helps teams of analysts uncover insights hidden in graph data. Linkurious Enterprise is compatible with Azure Cosmos DB. You can connect it to Linkurious Enterprise in minutes. And then with this interface, anyone in your team can start searching, exploring the data, and uncover insights that would otherwise remain hidden. So Linkurious Enterprise is really helping teams of analysts throughout the world extract new insights from Azure Cosmos DB. There's a number of things really that help our clients achieve that. First, there's Graph UI in Linkurious Enterprise, for which it's possible to display graphs, to display at a given time thousands of nodes and edges, and to do that in seconds. Then you can also search your graph, search for nodes, search for edges very intuitively. This data that you put out of Azure Cosmos DB, you can also slice and dice it. You can filter the data based on time, based on space, based on quantitative properties, and more. It's also possible to collaborate across the insights that you can uncover in Azure Cosmos DB with Linkurious Enterprise. For example, you can save visualizations, share them, or even publish them to the web. Linkurious Enterprise also includes what we call query templates, which is a way to turn repetitive investigation workflows into buttons and a form. And finally, all of that comes in a very secure environment where you can manage access rights for your nodes, for your relationships, and put in place advanced authentication mechanisms. So that's really what Linkurious Enterprise offers to help teams and analysts throughout the world uncover insights from Azure Cosmos DB. Today, Linkurious Enterprise and our products are used by thousands of investigators throughout the world, including at Zurich Insurance, Wells Fargo, the Indian Income Tax Department, and more. Here's a bit of an illustration on how to get started with Linkurious Enterprise, and you'll see how easy it is to do that. It all starts with the data preparation, and typically our clients identify relevant data sources that they want to bring into Linkurious Enterprise. This data has been moved into Azure Cosmos DB by a graph expert, typically. And then Linkurious Enterprise is connected to this Azure Cosmos DB instance, and that's when a graph expert customizes the look and feel of Linkurious Enterprise, and also set up some query templates, for example, to automate key investigation workflows. And finally, the analysts, the end users can connect to Linkurious Enterprise either directly or via an integration into one of the apps that they are already using to start uncovering insights hidden in that graph data. So that's really how to get started with Linkurious Enterprise. I've prepared a bit of a demo to get you a bit of a hands-on experience watching and understanding how Linkurious Enterprise works. And in this demo, we are going to be connecting to an Azure Cosmos DB instance. In this instance, we are storing some dummy data representing the sort of data, the sort of information that a financial institution can have about its clients. So we will be looking at things such as clients, phone numbers, addresses, and more. And we will see how this data comes to life with Linkurious Enterprise and how Linkurious Enterprise helps extract insights hidden in Azure Cosmos DB. So let's get started for this demo then. I'm going first to show you how to connect to Cosmos DB instance. So that's the interface that you will use as an admin to manage that type of things. So you can see, you can pick Cosmos DB. You can specify a few parameters such as the granular endpoint, the name of your database, and more. You can also, work with Azure Search to simplify your search experience. And once again, it's just a matter of providing the endpoint and a few parameters. So it's pretty easy to get started, I would say. And once you have entered this information and been able to connect to your Azure Cosmos DB instance, then you can really start getting new insights out of your data. So this is really the main part, the home screen, I guess, of Linkurious Enterprise. That's what you see as an end user when you connect to Linkurious Enterprise. You can see that I'm connecting to a database called Cosmos FinCrime, and we are going to start exploring this database to uncover some interesting stuff. So for this demo, I'm going to be focusing on a client called River Wisdom, and together we're going to look into that client that has been reported as suspicious by someone in the organization to figure out, based on this client's connections, whether we are facing, someone, totally normal or whether there's something fishy going on. So let's jump right in, type in the name. So the person that we are interested in is called River Wisdom. I can, search that name, look it up. We see a bunch of information on the left panel. So we see, for example, a country. We see a first name. We see a full name, among other information related to River Wisdom. Something that attracts my eye is also that little 5 that we see next to the node representing River Wisdom. This number signifies that River has 5 undisclosed relationships with other entities. So let's learn more about that. So I'm going to go ahead and double click. So we retrieve some new information. We see, for example, that River Wisdom has a relationship with an address. Okay. River Wisdom has phone number relationship with a phone number and more. I can undo what I just did, go back to River Wisdom, and instead of retrieving everything at once, maybe only retrieve the IP address that River Wisdom is connected to, or maybe retrieve the bank account. I can make this sort of choices and be very specific about how I want to traverse the graph, and this is quite important when dealing with large complex graphs. Okay, so let's go back to where we were. We are looking right now at everything that River Wisdom is connected to. That's the first level contacts of River Wisdom. I can select everything and once again expand to retrieve the second level contacts of River Wisdom, and I can very manually conduct that type of investigation. It's also possible to automate, some of these investigation steps via what we call query templates. So I'm going to give you a bit of an example of that. Right now, I've clicked on River Wisdom. I'm going to click on Queries, and I'm going to launch a query template called N level of contacts. So this is something totally custom, and it's going to help me specify the level of contacts of River Wisdom that I want to display. So I'm going to go ahead and specify that I want everything 5 ups away from River Wisdom. I'm clicking on 5, I guess, clicking on Run, and I'm retrieving this information in seconds. Okay, I can maybe add some extra information, I guess, if I want to. But now let me show you what went down behind the screen when we actually triggered that query template. So I'm opening the queries management model, click on query templates, and here is the query template that we actually used. And I'm going to go ahead and click on Edit, View Details, and I can see how it works. So it's really some Gremlin code with some parameters that are left unspecified. So here we see that the starting point of our query is a node of type person, and then as an end user, you can specify the number of ups. There's a minimum that's been specified, a maximum, and a default choice that has been specified. So these query templates are really a great way to turn investigation workflows into simple buttons of forms, and it just requires some understanding of Gremlin. And then, as an end user, you can really tap into the full potential of graph queries and Gremlin to extract new insights from your data. Okay, I'm going to close this window now. Going back to the investigation UI, I'm zooming out a little bit. If I want, I can plot this data that we have on the screen on a map to get a feel for where the addresses, I guess, are located. So we see that one of those addresses is located somewhere in Chicago. Okay. We also have other tools that help slice and dice the data to really understand what is going on. So, for example, it's possible to group relationships. If you have multiple relationships between any two nodes, you can also remove non-relevant nodes from the visualization. Let's say, for example, that the addresses are not so relevant for me. I can discard those. Same thing for the IP addresses, the loans, the phone numbers. Just going to focus, I guess, on the persons and the bank accounts. If I want to, I can be more specific about that. Maybe I can look into the total amounts or the total transactions, and just quickly locate the bank account with the most transaction. I can do this kind of design choices. I mean, this kind of choices very easily. All of that with simply by pushing buttons, I guess. Okay, so we've seen how to filter some non-relevant nodes. We can also bring time into the equation. I'm going to zoom on this relationship between the two bank accounts. We see that it's related to a transaction, and this transaction has a timestamp, and I can actually use this information in the timeline. I'm going to bring this information to the timeline, and now I can see when the various transactions occurred, and I can filter to maybe locate the first transaction in the network. Okay, so this would be this one. I can sort of play the movie of what happened. So these are this transaction, and this one are the two next transactions, and then locate the last transactions. So it's very easy to sort of understand the time element of your graph data. Okay, so we've seen that it's possible slice and dice the data. It's possible to make sense of time information. All of that simply by using very intuitive patterns, I guess. You also have different layouts in Linkurious Enterprise to focus on various aspects of the information. So, for example, it's possible to to switch from a force-directed layout to hierarchical layout or radial layout if you want to focus on different aspects of the information that you are looking at. Okay, I'm considering that now. At this point, I've uncovered that my initial point of interest, the client called River Wisdom here, is actually linked to a lot of other clients across personal information such as phone numbers, IP addresses, and addresses, but also via financial transactions. So this can be indicative of a fraud ring that's operating by creating fake identities out of real information and recycling those across sometimes the same different fake identities. For example, River Wisdom here, again, red are showing, I think, a phone number or something. So what's interesting is that Linkurious Enterprise and the graph data have really helped me figure out the context around River Wisdom and understand the risks that are represented by these clients in a way that would not be possible if I was simply looking at a list of transactions or just the key details of River Wisdom as a client. It's really the graph, the connections that are bringing new insights to me as an investigator. If we are able to uncover something of interest, we can save the visualization. Okay, I'm just going to give it a name, River Wisdom. That visualization that we have saved, we can export it to a number of formats, including Excel, CSV, or if you want maybe to enrich your next PowerPoint presentation, you can export the visualization as a PNG or SVG picture. If you want something more dynamic, you can also share the visualization with a colleague. So let's say, for example, that I'm working with Andrea. I want him to have a look at what I've uncovered. So I'm going to go ahead and add him to this visualization. Okay, done. So not only Linkurious Enterprise helps you understand and make sense of your data, but it also helps you collaborate around that with your team and your colleagues. Going back to the dashboard now. So that's it really in terms of a demo of Linkurious Enterprise. I hope that it has helped you understand how the software can help make sense of complex graph data. Okay, so let's continue. So why are our clients using Linkurious Enterprise? There are really three reasons. The first one is the graph visualization UI. With the ability to visualize graph data, it really makes for faster investigations. It becomes possible for anyone to understand the context on particular client, particular transaction, or really anything. So it becomes easier to uncover suspicious relationships, to understand the structure of a given network, and thus to uncover new insights. So that's the first point. Our clients also appreciate the ability to connect to Azure Cosmos DB in minutes. So that means it's super easy to get started. Just to contrast, if you were to use a JavaScript graph visualization library to create your own UI for Azure Cosmos DB, it would probably take you a while to be able to even have something, some data to present to your end users. And if you really want to have something polished, then it's going to become even more difficult, I guess, to get there. So there's this time element, this ability to go from have some data in Azure Cosmos DB to have something that can be used to the business. That is super critical. Something else is the ability to work collaboratively on graph data. With Linkurious Enterprise, it's possible to share the output of your investigations with colleagues. And that's important to enable teamwork. You can also manage access rights, and that's also critical, especially when you are working with sensitive data. In Linkurious Enterprise, you can manage all different groups, can see different information in the graph. For example, John, as part of group A, can see clients and transactions, but maybe Patricia, as part of group B, can see client transactions, and also companies and more. You can make this sort of choices and implement them very quickly in Linkurious Enterprise to make sure that sensitive data remains safe. And finally, with the Linkurious Enterprise REST API, you have a way to integrate graph features into existing tools and processes. So that means that your team, your end users, they can get these graph insights, I would say, where they are already working, instead of having to switch to another app, another context, and maybe get lost in the process. So that's really the three main reasons I would say that our clients appreciate Linkurious Enterprise and its ability to help teams of analysts and investigators throughout the world uncover insights hidden in Azure Cosmos DB. Want to learn more? Want to try Linkurious Enterprise? You can contact us at contact@linkurious.com or simply visit linkurious.com. Thank you very much for being there today. I wish you a great rest of your day.